now on. And I will hand you over to James, who is the parish clerk from Stondon, which I had to look up, is on the very border of Bedfordshire and Hertfordshire. And James, most of the people here are in Somerset because this is where the user group originally got started. But we have got a couple who are not. And I leave it all to you. So welcome, James Sterling from Stondon.
Okay, I'm just trying to get my slideshow up on the right screen. Ah, good. Presentation, here we go. This looks like the right one. And share. Right, can everybody see my screen?
It's coming up. It hasn't actually arrived yet. And there it is. Yeah.
Cool.
You're all set, James.
Okay, so just a bit of preamble. I work for Stondon Parish Council. I'm over in here in Bedfordshire. I've been involved with quite a range of IT and specialist sorts of types of things, and the slideshow the presentation I'm going to give you, although it's quite a long one, it's got 27 slides in it. I'll try to sort of whiz over a lot of them, and a lot of them are just sort of examples of different websites. Without too much ado, by the way, any of this stuff I put in here are my personal opinions. They're not necessarily those of the parish council. So let me move on to the first slide. He says, hopefully. No, it's not quite going. Oh, I know. Let's try this. Does that work? Oh, there we go. Right. So I'll give a brief summary of who I am, something about council websites, accessibility, transparency, content management systems, alternative hostings, and about domains, specifically .govs. I've worked in sales and marketing for most of my life, support, technology, all in sort of the information and sort of IT areas, all to do with science and technology, so sort of quite complicated technical stuff. I've been councillor and chairman for Stondon PC back in 2011 until 2016 when I resigned. I then acted as an acting clerk for the parish council in Stondon because the clerk had, unfortunately, due to ill health, passed away back in then. And in 2017, the council asked if I would like to become the clerk for the council. Obviously, following adverts, they had a few mums who were interested in a bit of part-time typing. They decided that I would probably be the best person to do it. Completed my CILCA in 2019 and worked on a range of parish council websites. So in Bedfordshire, we had a challenge where we had 80 parish councils that needed to replace our websites in a hurry. That was because the provider, company called Cambridge Open Systems, who provide eVoice, they had their contract cancelled by Surrey and Essex at the time, and then they decided to pull the plug on Central Beds and Beds Borough, which was originally Bedfordshire. And by accident, the owner, Joe Aldark, emailed me to let me know that he was cancelling the contract, whereas he actually meant to send the email to a different council. And so I asked Central Beds about this, and they admitted, yes, it was happening. So together, we got together I then let my fellow clerks know. We got together, we talked about our needs and requirements. We realized that we needed all this platform needed to meet accessibility. We need to have all the stuff for transparency. As it says in the slide, it needed all of those capabilities because without it, it would be very difficult for us clerks to do it. I had originally thought about doing it myself and then realized that would be a very silly idea, trying to help 80 councils out, not having any ability to get any backup or support, or very limited. And one thing that we were very keen on was making sure that we could have some form of community engagement, such as using automated newsletters and mailing lists. On to specifics. So accessible websites, obviously we all need to have accessible websites these days. Let me move that across there. And as part of that, we all need to have that. Hands up, everybody who's everybody got accessible websites? Do they all know what it is? Yeah, fine, cool. Okay, so quite a lot of us do know that we need it. And key things are obviously to make sure, even if you haven't got an accessible website, to make sure you've got an accessibility statement, at least stating that you're going to be working on it. My favorite tool is the one built into Chrome called Lighthouse, which is nice and easy to use and gives you a nice score. So you can say whether your site is really rubbish or it's very good. What do we mean in terms of accessibility? Well, certainly things like making sure your images have the right colors. You need to give them context. Obviously, having shadows and things like that makes it very difficult. An example is obviously the accessibility statement on my own parish council. Some examples of accessibility statements, for example, Somerset, they did have a very, very basic one. They've now actually improved it. There is quite a lot of stuff around that allows you to make sure that your site, you can make simple changes, like, for example, colors is quite a favorite thing, having the order correct. So, for example, if you look at any Word document, normally you have a title, you'll have then heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. If you worked with Word and you use things like tables of contents, then obviously that's very important. And again, that's really what you need to do. The same thing with your website, is make sure that you go from H1 to H2 to H3, then back to H2 and then back to H3, but make sure that they do them in a logical order, because without that, it becomes very confusing for people who are using assistive technology. People often say to me when I talk to them, why do I need a .gov? It's expensive, it's complex to implement, we can't find a provider, and we want to do it cheap. I can buy a .org for £6, really great. Now, obviously, all of this stuff, as I said in my slide, all of it's recommended by the ICO, external auditors in the 2021-22 AGAR guidance. The cost is about £45 a year more than a .org or similar domains, which typically around £6 to £10. It evidences that you're a government body. It gives some security, and there's a huge list of providers. There's some 400 providers. Providers such as the ones that we use, which is Cloud Next, have made streamlined the process and made it really easy for people to apply for a .gov domain. As I mentioned, oh, come on, work, thank you. It's in the JPEG audit guidance. It's recommended by various consumer groups. Only councils could apply. And all those, if you've got .org or .org UK, then obviously you're a UK or a US charity. Co-UKs, UK companies, and anyone can apply for those domain names. So they can really, in some way, sort of almost pretend that they are a government body, where in actual fact they're not. And they could issue things like send out emails to say, you need to pay your precept to me direct. Here's my bank account details. Now pay it in because I'm a parish council. So there's lots of things like that. As I say, Cloud Next is one provider. There are some 400 alternatives if you want to look down the list on the JISC website. Going back to Bedfordshire parish councils, again, this was the old system. We had a content management system that was quite simple. It was a bit inflexible at times, but it would do 90% of what we wanted to do. Unfortunately, it's passed away, it's no longer in existence. Here's a couple of examples. This is an old site, a friend of mine, Diane, used to manage, so it's quite simple. This is my website, again, a little bit more sophisticated, had a bit more information about it, about the calendar and latest news, but it didn't really run a mailing list. I had to run that separately. So going on to about sort of content management systems. Now, depending on what people have, you may or may not have such systems. Ones I've come across when we were looking at our research, when we were looking for a replacement site, we're looking for a different range of providers. So we looked at companies like Vision ICT, 2Commune. They were, personally, I found them a bit arrogant. They wouldn't respond back to my questions for pricing. They seem to struggle to get back to me with a detailed quote. We did suggest that it was going to be up to 80 sites, and they seemed uninterested, which was a bit strange, but there we go. Talking to various people over the past couple of years about websites, because I seem to be dealing with them more. I'm not actually doing anything about them, apart I'm not building them or making them, but they've suggested that they struggle with making changes to menus, structure and content, and anything that they want to do, there's often a charge involved, and then they have to wait for a response from the provider. And then you move on to a sort of fully hosted with a custom sort of WordPress system, NetWise, parishcouncils.org. Again, you've got some ability to change the menu. Again, you've got charges for any major changes, and you have to, again, wait for responses. And what we did was we went for a self-hosted standard WordPress content management system, and we used a company called Eyelid Productions to take all of our old content and move them across onto our new websites. We ended up with being full admins to the site. We can make all our changes ourselves, and it's really the most inexpensive, lowest cost of ownership. Of course, you can always build it yourself. So as I mentioned, these are a couple of the providers. There are some free ones as well. You can build it yourself using WordPress. There's Joomla, Drupal, and there's a whole load of others. You could, of course, use Notepad, Word, and there is Hugo Fox, which uses a custom content management system. Some of these solutions have limited or no support. I know that Hugo Fox the support can be great, going to abysmal, but everybody has different opinions. So what did we go for? We went for a standard WordPress-based solution. It uses standard modules, runs on most hosting platforms, completely adaptable and expandable. We're not totally reliant on a single provider. We try to avoid any bespoke bureau type systems, because that is always dangerous, as you really have to set out a very detailed specification. And once you've done that and you set a budget, then typically they'll try and charge you for extras that you may think you may need. So what did we do? We ended up with a company called Eyelid Productions and Cloud Next. Eyelid Productions did all the site build for us. Cloud Next provide all the hosting, so that is the storage system. They provided emails, SSL certificate, which is the padlock on the keyboard on the website. It allows us to evolve over time. Eyelid also do a monthly backup, and Cloud Next, as part of their package built into it, they provide a snapshot, daily snapshot. So, to give you an example, this is the current Stondon Parish Council website. It's an example of what it might look like if you were. This is an example of what we've done for the minutes. So we've got like a file management system behind that. It allows me to put all the minutes in. I can drag and drop those minutes onto the page. Can have easy structure. This is an example of what, once I've logged into the site, where I can drag and drop documents straight onto the page, which is here. And there's all my information there about that I wanted on that page. News, this news goes out as a weekly digest. In my particular case, can go out as a daily digest. And that, as I posted an item up there, for example, the road closure, people will get that email on a Wednesday morning. In fact, they've had that email this morning, just letting them know about stuff. Things like agendas, once I publish that as a post, it will then automatically go out to everybody on the mailing list so they know when a meeting's coming up. That happens as soon as I publish the agenda. Some further examples of different councils. So it's obviously Swaffham. So all over the place, down into Kent, back up into Hereford. And this is the front page of Stondon. There's got a little man up in the top corner, up here. And that little man, which you can install as a free WordPress plugin, gives you the ability to have an accessibility menu, because not all browsers have the ability to read a page, whereas this plugin does that for you. As I say, it's free. It's quite good. It's very flexible. There are a number of other sort of plugins that you can add in as well. So in summary, obviously having an accessible website, make sure you've got a published statement. Website content management systems, there's a lot to choose from. Websites should be easy and flexible to use. We find that the engagement is really good because it helps push the council's message as opposed to the usual trivia that you get on places like Facebook. And then you've got the ability for storing documents for transparency, media library for slideshows and images, and again, lots of options in terms of layouts and tools. And again, it needs to be easy, simple to use, and that's really it. And that really closes off the presentation. So any questions? I know I've whizzed through it very quickly, but
Hi, it's Tim. I've got quite a few questions, and if I get too consuming, maybe we'll have a separate call or something.
Fine.
Only because this is like great timing for us, because we're actually looking at other website providers at the moment, and we've had a number of demos from some of those companies that you've mentioned that do specific council websites for councils.
Yeah.
So I guess my main question then was, because you talked about some of those that do websites, you know, the companies that do it specifically for parish councils, which to me that's quite to us that's quite attractive, because it's kind of fit for purpose, because it's like a mold of what parish councils need.
Yeah.
But then I'm interested in what you're saying, because it sounds like, James, that you were sort of saying you looked at that, but you liked the flexibility potentially of what you came up with yourself. And I'm just wondering how IT literate you need to be in order to go your route, as opposed to maybe a cookie cutter approach with people who provide parish council websites, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do. No, so this was so if I go back up, so these older systems, which was being run by eVoice, we looked at this, and there was a group of about a dozen of us who got together to look at what options were around, which is why the BRIS presentation was one that we actually sat down and went through when we were discussing what to do. And we looked at the fully hosted systems, and the costs for some 80 councils was going to be quite horrendous, especially some of the smaller ones with smaller precepts. Vision ICT and 2 Commune, you're talking about about £2,000 roughly for everything, including email accounts and everything else. And for a council that's got a precept of maybe 8K, it's a bit silly. And they didn't seem to have a really sort of very basic package. So that was one thing that put us off some of those. And in terms of what we've done with Eyelid Productions, where they've taken the old content from our site, they've got probably about 200 parish councils, and they use a template sort of process.
Okay.
And in fact, let me end this share, if I can. Yeah.
Because that's interesting you're saying, because they've done it for other councils. So effectively, what's the difference between that and like parish councils for websites or whatever it's called? I'm not quite seeing what's different. Effectively, Eyelid Production sounds like they've done multiple parish councils. So are they not the same? Is it just a different provider, but more preferred?
Yeah. So basically, what? Well, let me see if I can share the screen again. Oh, here we go. Share. Yeah, that's it. So Eyelid Productions run by a chap called Mark Milmore, who saw his ugly mug a minute ago. So these are all the websites.
Okay.
So that gives you a list of sort of websites. Then if I go to Stondon, for example, so basically everything on my website, I could go to any range of sites in Bedfordshire and they'd all look pretty similar. And the main thing is that we have, and I act as the sort of like technical person in Bedfordshire, and I probably get maybe one email a month just saying, can you give me a hand with this or something like that. But most of it is actually, if you go to the Owlet Productions, if I go to the login and go to the training area. So this gives you an idea. So Owlet Productions provide a whole set of training videos. So if you want to learn how to do something, most of it's there.
Okay.
Can I jump in and just say those training videos, I know what it's like. People think YouTube videos, I haven't got half an hour to sit and watch a video about something. I need to know, like yesterday, a lot of them are a minute long, a couple of minutes long. And I was part of, with James, of the original working group to look at these options. So, I mean, I have to say, I'm on Sharnbrook Parish Council, and we use this. And in fact, yesterday, I actually did look on the training site for a way of finding out how to add a new page to my website. Actually didn't find what I wanted, funnily enough, but I found it made me think, and I thought, oh yes, I've worked it out, and I have worked it out, and I've now added it. And I'm not the world's most technical person. It's lovely to know that James will give me a call back if I send him an email. He's usually, even if I don't need him to give me a call back, he'll still give me a call back, bless him. And you know, it's great to have that backup, but I know that equally Mark will, if I send him an email saying I'm having trouble with this, can you do a video on it, he'll do a video on it, and then he'll post it so that everybody's got that opportunity to learn how to update things.
Thanks, Helen. Can I just jump to Amanda, who's had her hand up very politely for the last 10 minutes? Perhaps, Amanda, you'd like to take your question now?
Yeah, again, my IT skills are at the best basic. When it comes to the .gov website, which I'm looking into for one of my parishes at the moment, when I looked at the process, I pretty much turned it off very quickly because I thought, I have no clue what you're even talking about. If I go through Cloud Next, will they do the process for me and I just fill in the details? Because that would be great.
Yes. And if you ring them up and speak to a chap called Oliver,
yeah,
they look after about 300 to 400 parish councils.
Okay.
So they and when I took out for Stondon, I got a .gov domain back in 2012, and back then I had probably a 4-page document that you had to complete, and I looked at this and went,
yeah.
And I was used to doing documents all the time. I used to respond to tenders, and I spoke to Cloud Next about it, and they said fine. So what they did then was that between us, they built a web page where it prompts you for what information you need to put in. So you are what's your role, and underneath it will put I am a clerk, or I am a parish council, or I'm a town council, whatever it happens to be. It'll actually prompt you with what information you need to complete it. I mean, Helen, you probably had that, didn't you, at that time?
What, sorry? Oh yeah, definitely.
Originally.
Yeah, I did. And it was a piece of cake. I just signed the paperwork, basically.
Brilliant. Okay, I'll use that then. Thank you very much.
Yeah, highly recommended.
But
and the other thing is, don't forget, is that we get 40 web email addresses for our website with Cloud Next. And so, when you get a new councillor join you, it's easy to set them up with a new email address, and you can send all of their council documents to them. And when they leave, you can just close it down, and that's it, gone. Okay. So that again is very easy. You don't need to be techie at all.
Brilliant, thank you.
And I've written quite a number of guides that I send out to clerks if they need to understand how you add an email account to Outlook or to Thunderbird, or variety of and Android and iPhone, I've tried to make it as easy as possible because I've worked in tech support for quite a few years, and I know how challenging it can be for non-technical people to understand. So, and Cloud Next will also help with various guides.
Thank you very much, James. Does anyone else have any questions, please?
Chris?
That was easy, wasn't it?
Chris
Someone say
Edwards?
yes?
Unmute, Chris. Can you ask him to unmute?
Yeah, we have done.
Hi, Chris. Do you want to unmute?
Can you hear me now?
We can, yes. Lovely.
Okay. James, on the Stondon PC website, one of the slideshows showed there was a login box. Why would you have a login to your website?
Where?
Well, in one of the
on the
slides.
presentation, on the slides. Yes. Yes, there would. I would have been. Yes, one of those slides would have shown me as being logged in. So, so that allows me then to make any changes to the site.
Oh, I see. That's just for your the changes you want to make, not for the likes of me having to log in. Okay, no. Okay.
No.
One other question: accessibility requirements, WCAG 2.1. Could you just explain briefly what that reference number is?
So that is, hang on a minute, let me see if I can find it on my slide. So that's easier probably if I go to my own accessibility statement. So basically, accessibility statement and WCAG 2.11 is all to do with these guidelines here. Stay still. So these guidelines here, which relate to the colors, the structure of the site. So if you can't see specific colors, so if you have a color blindness, then you may need to have the site in a different color. You may want to, for example, if you've got weak eyesight or you have to wear strong lenses, then you can zoom in on your site like that, and it doesn't affect the way it looks.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Yeah. Now that I've read a couple of sentences, that makes sense to me. So thanks for that. And may I just ask one last question?
Sure.
On the slide you've got in front of you, on the top right, you've got that little man in a circle. How would one put that on a website? Because our website doesn't have that little man.
So this, so if you were to go to userway.org.
Yeah.
So can you see the userway.org down here?
Waggle your, oh yes, I can see it, yes.
Here we go. So they do a free plugin that will work on quite a variety of different sites.
Yes.
But you have to make sure that your site meets the requirements to start with. This is not something to replace it. It doesn't fix the problem.
No.
This is just a tool. There are lots of tools like this around. Some of them are prettier. This one's quite a nice one personally. Some have different ways of displaying the information. And this is a plugin mainly aimed at WordPress-based sites, but they do have solutions for other types of sites. So this is the accessibility widget. They will also want to charge you for some of the things. So they will do some, remember, this is an American organization, but they will try and charge you for some of the stuff. But the free trial, which allows you the accessibility widget that is up here, is just a plugin. There's no charge for it. You register your site with them and you install the plugin and off you go.
Okay, thank you, James. That's lovely.
Anybody else, please? Any questions? I didn't see anybody waving their hand at me. So let me just say, James, thank you so much for your time. I think people will hopefully have found that very helpful. And I hope there's lots of follow-up to you for anyone who wants to chase us up.
So if anybody wants to call me, that's my phone number. I have a voice over IP phone, so it rings on my desk. If you want to email me, it's just clark@stondon-pc.gov.uk. I'm more than happy to ask if you've got any specific questions, more than happy to try and help.
Well, thank you all very much for your time and for showing up. And that'll be the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay,
Cool.
thank you.
Graham,
Thank you.
Graham, just one
Bye.
thing, Graham, could we
Yes.
get the recording of this? Because it's just that there might be somebody in my parish who'd be interested to see this.
Absolutely. The recording will go up on the website, and I'll let you know when it's there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care all. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.